the increase of moisture holding capacity, water holding capacity, is 9% in arid, up to 16% in semi-arid, 15% in subhumid, and 17% in the humid. Now it's that soil moisture that is the difference between a total crop failure and hunger versus having a crop. India has had very severe drought this year. We had no monsoon at all. And I traveled to all our regions where our farmers produce food. And everywhere, the organic farms had a crop. The chemical farms hadn't even started to transplant their paddy at the end of August when it should be done in June. So chemical agriculture totally failed in the drought. Biodiverse organic systems survived the drought, which is why it's an adaptation strategy and not just a mitigation strategy. There has been a lot of talk of something called biochar. It suddenly appeared out of the blue. I believe it appeared out of the blue after it was shown that biofuels is causing hunger, and the biofuel industry organized itself to say, okay, if they don't approve converting of food into biofuels, we'll say the waste product is a biochar, and it's like the indigenous people farmed 10,000 years ago in Amazon and had something called terra prata, and we will now sell our industrial waste. I live in a country where industry uses any opportunity to pass off its pollution. When Coca-Cola polluted the groundwater, they took the pollutants and said this is fertilizer. And then we had to test it to show how disastrously toxic their waste was. Fertilizer, waste from steel plants, they take their stuff to the farmers and say, this is fertilizer. And I can just see, if we start going the biochar way, all of industry will use its toxic waste to palm it off as fertilizer to farmers. The second big problem is, if it gets into this whole credit mechanism and offsetting, farmers will have an incentive to cut the trees that are vital to fixing carbon and creating drought insurance. Because now they have, just like they got money as a subsidy for chemical fertilizers and went to chemical fertilizers, if they get subsidies for biochar, they're going to start burning trees. But there are two other aspects which trouble me a lot, also because some are very good ecologists who don't do organic farming, but think in the air. You know, I think if you just stay in the stratosphere, there's a problem. You know, so the dirt has to educate you. Two phrases that trouble me that are against the science of life. One, a lot of people are writing that by creating biochar we will fix the carbon. The carbon is fixed when the chlorophyll molecule does its work. All you do is turn fixed carbon into charcoal when you burn it without oxygen. But the second is even more dangerous. They're starting to talk of humus in the soil as volatile carbon when it is not. And I think the Soil Association is studies showing, and our studies showing, that this is stable carbon that stays in the soil for very long. If it was unstable, there'd be no humus in the forests. If nature didn't know how to retain carbon, we'd have had climate change millions of years ago. Nature worked in a carbon cycle. And this new hubris that we know how to fix the carbon cycle, nature went wrong, I think is part of a new threat that we face. Another issue is treating Roundup-resistant soil as a carbon mitigation measure. We've done studies to show actually carbon goes down in the soil because biomass goes down in your farm and microbial activity goes down with the application of herbicides. We've turned it into a language of conservation tillage. So now when people, no-till agriculture, conservation tillage agriculture, nobody knows it's about spraying glyphosate and killing everything green. I think we are at this amazing moment where two things we can do. The first is farming, and organic farming is something everyone can either begin in terms of a producer tomorrow or support as an eater. 6 billion people can become major leaders in this transformation, and we don't have to wait till 5 countries come into agreement with the remaining world. This is something we can all agree to, that it's good to do agriculture that protects the soil, gives us more and better food, and solves the climate problem at the same time. And organic is the way. The second is, I think, the mind shift that is needed. Humanity has gone insane, obsessed with the Wall Street logic. That money must make money, and money is real, life is false. We've got to put life at the center. And money is a medium of exchange. That's all it is. It's not the measure of wealth in the world. It's just a means of exchange. And, you know, the discourse of the climate thing is a low carbon economy. You know? We must create low carbon economies. What I say is we must create low fossil fuel carbon economies, but we must enhance the living carbon economy, whether it is in the forest or it is on our farms. We cannot afford to criminalize carbon, which is the very basis of life on Earth. We must celebrate, nurture, multiply the abundance of carbon, which is the richness of the soil and the gift of food that nourishes our bodies. And every one of us can be engaged in this. And I know while they waffle and they debate, we can continue to move. And I think before they get any agreement in place in the formal meeting, we can multiply organic farming, natural farming, thousands of times more than what it already is. Thank you.